Alright, so I want to talk about, I've been playing Elden Ring for the past 4 months, I think? 3 or 4 months? I bought it at launch, and then I played it a bit, and I couldn't really get into it. And then I had some financial issues. I had to sell my um, gaming PC. But recently I got another PC, and then I kind of got back into it was it April or May? Um, I've just been hooked ever since. I don't know what clicked from the time that I started playing when I first got it, and then when I started playing it a few months ago. I mean, I already knew there was hype around, DLC and stuff like that, but I think I'm about like 70 hours in. I just beat Morgott. I'm like level 75. I did the prisoner class because I like having magic, even though I'm really not very good at, leveling up magic, like intelligence and faith and arcane and stuff. Um, and I've just had an absolute, I mean, it's really not been easy all the time, but like, there's just something about, it feels very therapeutic playing a Souls game. There's something very therapeutic, and I know other people have kind of talked about that. I think there's a great video. I think it's Nakey Jake. He talks about when he played Dark Souls, and it kind of helped him through a depressive spell. And there is something to that, and I think the reason why it's so effective in that way, at least for me, is there's that whole stereotype of get good or whatever, but I think in reality it's get help. The collective sort of support that you can get, not only inside the game, because when you're playing online, people will give messages, and then obviously you can get co-op and all that. But even outside the game, like there was a job I worked at a few months ago that, one of the guys I was working with, he was also playing it at the same time, and we were constantly talking about like, oh, when you fight Rykard, make sure to get that sword and blah blah blah. Like we were just constantly helping each other, and that's part of the game as well. Is even when you're not playing it, when you're trying to help each other out. I think that's actually, for me at least, that's what's really appealing to a Souls game, is that yeah, it is hard, but if you ask for help, and there's nothing wrong with like going through a guide or something online, or because the lore and the aesthetics of it they're absolutely my shit. It's this very all that dark fantasy shit. I can't get enough of that. So yeah, I feel like when you get that sort of feedback from other players, both inside the game and outside the game, it clicks way more, and you feel like you're on a journey, not just like by yourself in this like little isolated game. You're on, sure, your own individual journey, but also you're participating in other people's journeys, and that feels cool. I mean, obviously this could be, it's very philosophical, very metaphorical, just like we all are on our own individual journeys, but we have to, acknowledge that we didn't get to where we were if it wasn't for the help of others, all that bullshit. But well, it's not bullshit. But there's just something really satisfying about that. And I just fucking love it. I really, really love that style of play. And I feel like I get Souls games now. There's also something like aesthetically that I think specifically Elden Ring does, and the previous Souls games kind of do this too. Where it really embraces the concept of the sublime and the sort of original, sort of Enlightenment era definition, I should say. Because when, guys like Kant and Burke or whatever were writing about the sublime, like, obviously there's a feeling of, you're at, you realize that you're part of this, massive universe. Originally they were talking about just like seeing, the outdoors, seeing a big mountain or valley or whatever, and just the pure beauty of that. But also within that sort of function of the sublime, there's this bit that's a bit of terror, that bit of realizing how small you are, of how insignificant you are. You're just this little blip in this giant, you know, landscape that is just so indescribably beautiful. But it's also a little bit terrifying. You know, it's a little bit scary. And I think Elden Ring specifically, you know, the other Souls games I think do a pretty good job of that, but I think specifically with Elden Ring, because there's so many vistas that you're just looking out, and you're just like, holy fuck, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this before. That game does that to a T, and it's such an incredible way. That it really embraces this sort of original conception of the sublime, where it's this sort of transcendental feeling of, you know, you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself, but also you're this big, this little guy, and then all of a sudden this giant, you know, you go to a boss battle, and then but then you defeat that, and that feels so cool. That's so, it's so satisfying. And yeah, it's fucking hard sometimes, but like, I think maybe that's why so many people find these kinds of games very therapeutic, because it really embraces a lot of challenges that I think we all kind of go through in life, in the game of life. It sounds fucking stupid, but like, I don't know. Like, I think there's something to that, if I'm being honest. Like, there is something to that. And I think that's why these kinds of games have been so impactful. I'm sure there's other people who play video games that are getting sick of talking about Souls games, because it's like, can we please talk about something else? Kind of myself included, you know, since I've been playing it for so long, you know, I'm still really enjoying it, but there is also a part of me that's like, I should probably play something else. Like, I've been so in that world and in that mindset for so long that it's getting a little bit like, maybe I should play something else. But it's so hard it's hard to when a game like that has that kind of impact on you, to play something else. And I think it is part of the reason why Souls fans are so fucking obnoxious, is because it's like, it has such an impact on them. They can't stop talking about that. I had the same feeling when I played Kingdom Come Deliverance a few years ago, where they're super mega fans of that game that, you know, they played 500 hours and they just think it's the greatest thing ever. And I was like, nah, whatever. And I like the setting. I'm really into, like, you know, medieval history and stuff. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool, but it's fucking hard and the combat's really hard. And I just couldn't, for whatever reason, get into it until I did. Like, I think I like downloaded it again from Steam, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try this again, see if it's worth it. And then it just clicked, and I felt so immersed in this world that I couldn't stop playing it. I think I played like 200 hours of that game. And on a side note, you know, anyone who maybe isn't like a gamer or whatever, you hear those numbers, oh, I played 200 hours, 600 hours, and it's like, oh, that's cringe. They think it's like time wasted. And it's not at all, at least to me. Because if we had little like clocks of, you know, how many hours we've been on TikTok or Instagram or, you know, binge watching shows on Amazon, if we just had that every time we closed those apps and it said like, oh, you've done this for 500 hours, I think we'd probably feel differently about our own sort of indulgences, whether we're gaming or not. But like the idea that like that's time wasted, I mean, there is a way of doing that in a way that kind of wastes time if you're just constantly playing that specific game and nothing else, you know, and you're just using it as a distraction, then sure, I think that could be problematic. But that's kind of with any other medium. You could use TV shows or movies or fucking trashy books to distract yourself. Like, people do that with any kind of any media. So I don't think that's unique to video games. I think it's just the aspect of play that people get turned off by, that people are like, oh, you're just sitting and playing a game. And it's like, well, you're just sitting and reading a book, you know? Like, who gives a shit? You know, there's people that have read, you know, the Lord of the Rings books like a dozen times, and those are just massive tomes, and that's probably taken them dozens and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. If you really like a piece of media and you just want to indulge in it and like seep yourself into it, that's awesome. And whether I don't know why I'm going on a random tangent about, you know, people need to realize that video games are art. Like it's kind of a dead topic of discussion at this point. But it just dawned on me that, you know, people say, you know, oh, I played 600 hours of this game, I played 1,000 hours of this game, and I think people cringe at that because it's just such a huge thing, and it's like, oh, you could have done something productive with all that time, and it's like, no, I did do something productive. I did a thing I really liked, and I got a lot out of it, assuming that that person had that kind of relationship with that game. Yeah, that's neither here nor there. I've been really enjoying Elden Ring. If you haven't played it, I get it, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but man, like, that's the thing, a younger version of me would fucking hate that game. I'd be like, this sucks, it's too hard. Because I grew up playing, like, GTA and Assassin's Creed and stuff, and those are great games, but, like, they're not, you don't have to put as near as much sort of thought and effort and investment into those kinds of games. But yeah, it's great. It's been a great time. I still need to finish the game. I'm getting towards the end, I think. Like I said, I just defeated Morgott, and there's that whole area of the map in the north that I just opened up. That I'm looking forward to. Yeah. Yeah.